All right. I'm very excited. Thank you everyone for joining. Again, the purpose of these calls is we do these newsletters that are deep dives. But these are really an opportunity to dive deeper with the person that we're learning from about kind of the why behind what they're doing. The newsletter covers the how and the what, but really to dive deeper on the why and the thought process behind some of these decisions. And also just to give you guys a space to ask Sam questions and learn from him. So I'm going to spend maybe 10 minutes giving a super quick summary at the beginning of what we covered in the newsletter to give us some context. And then I'll ask him some questions and then we'll open up for open Q&A where we'll just ask you to come on camera, casual setting, and just ask Sam any of your questions. If you have questions during, just feel free to put them in the chat and then we can make sure to get to those first when we get to open Q&A. So cool. I'm excited to dive in. Sam, you want to give just like a quick intro to everybody of who you are?
Oh my. Deep question. Libra, long walks on the beach. Kidding. Um, Sam Kuehnle, head up marketing over at Loxo. We're a startup. Before here, I've worked at large enterprise company, publicly traded, then went to an agency where I got to work with a ton of startups, scale ups, and found out that I love that side of things more. Move fast, break things, get a lot of exposure. And that's what led me to Loxo, being in the staying in the software space, scale up space, where it's, for some of you who've been in an agency or been in house and you've hit that red tape, it's like, what would happen if I just got to do things the way that I want to and see if that strategy actually works? So that was the big appeal to going back in house, and it's been a lot of fun since.
I love it. And yeah, one of the things that stood out about you, Sam, to me was it's kind of what this whole newsletter is about, but the like you I want to say you like think from first principles without saying you think from first principles. I don't like that phrase. It's like really tech bro-y, but like you uh are not caught up in like the new shiny tools. You're just like, what are the fundamentals I need to do right to get this done? Should I actually care about this or not? And it's like an essentialist view of marketing is clearly working for you. I think like I can learn a lot from you there, as can a lot of us. So thanks for being open about sharing that stuff with us in the public. All right, so let's get into just a quick summary. That headline here is that Lox has grown like 5x since you joined, and you have extreme clarity on how you did it, and it was by doing like very few things really well. And I think the interesting insight that you shared with me is like you we're going to talk through the journey a little bit, which is like what you did to get there, but it was very simple. And one of the reasons it could work with being so simple is because you joined with like a company that was already in super strong product and channel and market fit. And so this is just an interesting thing to understand, which is like you need all of these fits to get together and work in order to do a playbook like this and have it drive results. And you came into Loxo and it was like you had product market fit, which was you could just show a demo of the tool and people were like, wow, this is great. Here's my money. And then you had product channel fit, which is the like you targeted recruiters and recruiters were on LinkedIn, which is like a very clear channel of where they spend their time and a little bit of Facebook. Um, and then channel model fit, which is like, to my understanding, sales led, which meant that you could afford to spend a bunch on content. And then you also had like maybe there's a PLG thing there too, which is the content is about the product, and then people can sign up and get value from the product immediately. So you had all these fits first, which is like a really strong foundation. You didn't have to like play around with this stuff. I think in your words, you said, yeah, I don't have to redo positioning or anything like that. I can just get to executing, which is important because like you need this foundation first before you execute if you're at an early stage company like this. And then your playbook was like very simple. It was like build a narrative. Well, I guess maybe the key insight was like I show people this thing, this demo of this tool, and they're like, wow. So they get it. So all you need to do is build a narrative. Like the meat is already there. You just need to build a narrative around that and then distribute it where people hang out. And what that looked like was this like old way, new way, move from the Franken stack to one easy to use platform. You like cleaned up your homepage messaging and then just like distributed that everywhere via ads on social, which is LinkedIn, a little bit of Facebook content, which was organic content from your CEO, content on LinkedIn, and a podcast. Uh, and that's basically it, right? For like 3 years and just like continue to refine that machine with the goal for you guys being like you want to be the HubSpot for recruiters of like back when HubSpot was creating good content, hot take for me, but like the actually useful uh, content from them. Um, and yeah, that was basically the machine. And then we can get into like where you're going now. Um, Oh, well, I guess, I mean, we covered this here, which might be interesting to people, is like the team that you had for that was one demand marketer who was focused on distro on LinkedIn, Facebook, and a little Google, a head of brand and content who's big on copywriting and increasing content, both quality and velocity, and then a head of creative to make sure that like design was standardized, colors all looked good, people were showing consistently from visual perspective, and then a video editor who I asked you on our call, like, why would you hire a video editor full time and bring them in house? And you had an interesting insight, which is like they were working with an agency and they were not based in the US. And so you could bring them full time, give that person a raise, and have their full time attention while basically paying what you would have been paying to the agency. So like a win-win-win, which I thought was a unique and interesting thing. So yeah, that's kind of the summary of like what you did. You came into a great foundation, super simple growth playbook, narrative, and then distribute it where people hang out. And then this is the team you use to do that. And then we'll get into what's next in a little bit. Did I miss anything there? Is there anything you would want to add for context before getting any questions? So,
I mean, we had a bunch of failures along the way too. It wasn't perfect, but it's the good old Pareto principle. It's just like figure out what the 20% of stuff that's going to drive 80% and focus on that. I mean, I have monkey mind. I will tell you all the time, like I love shiny, don't get me wrong. I will chase it, but that's what's gotten into like this year's theme is just like we have to stay focused because there is so much changing all the time. So that's the other part that we always balance is just like, is this part of the core principles? Is this a nice to have? How do we think about it in terms of all that? But yeah, I think that's a good summary of what's gotten us here so far.
sweet. Yeah, it's just beautiful how simple it is. Okay, so my first question is like we talked about a core reason this worked is like you had insane PMF. There's that quote, it's like less important how hard you're rowing than what boat you're rowing in. It's like you could have exerted the same amount of effort at a company without insane PMF and it wouldn't do 5x growth in 3 years. So like, do you have any insights there on maybe A, like how did you know they had PMF? And then B, if you were, evaluating companies as a marketer, like any things that you would look for?
Yeah. I'll give three answers to this. One is I had a huge, it's not a cheat code in it, but when I was at Refine Labs, I was talking to Matt, our CEO, about potentially coming over to Loxo. I was like, come be a client for us at Refine Labs first. So while I was there, I kind of got to test it out and also get access to Salesforce and understand all of the data behind the scenes. So I was able to see some stuff before fully committing there. So that's why I say it's like that's a 1% opportunity. That's not really realistic for most people. So the ways though that I was understanding that when I was evaluating though is just like I saw the demo request to win rate. So disregard just like sales qualified opportunity or stage name. Everyone has a slightly different number. I was just looking at, okay, for everyone who raises their hand and says, I do want to talk to sales to them becoming a closed won customer, what was that number? It was incredibly high, like nothing I'd ever seen at Refine Labs with all of our clients. And then I saw that in the how'd you hear about us responses, because they did implement that, word of mouth was the number one driver. So that tells me, okay, incredibly high win rates. And there already is this natural flywheel behind the scenes of like people wanting to jump on to see it in that way, which that complements very well sales-led strategy where it's not sales having to push this product all the time, but they're already hearing positive stuff from their peers in a very it's not a good old boys club network, but they trust recruiters well over anything that sales or others could ever tell them. So you have this 1-2 punch between them of good word of mouth, and when they see it, they get it. That's just that to me is just like that's product market fit. Those two things are in an oversimplified world. That really points you in the direction of like there's definitely something here, and they've never done any proper distribution or real proactive marketing push before. So I was like, imagine what happens when you pour gas on this in a structured way. It's only going to grow from there.
That's I have like two marketers in mind that are at like crazy fast growth, crazy PMF companies. The other one is like David Flarm, who's a VP of marketing at owner.com, and they're like blowing up. And he had the same, like he was doing consulting and then saw from the inside and then was like, oh shit, I didn't want to get a job, but now I like kind of have to because the company is so good. So that there's an interesting, like, there's only two stories, but interesting trend there. Um, okay, so demo to win rate,
Hmm.
crazy PMF. Um, anything on the like, uh,
Yeah,
I
when I
feel
say
like
most,
they're a bootstrap company and you like cared about that vibe a little bit in the midst of like all the VC
yeah, I mean, so that was a
placement.
big part of it. I see Charlotte Babington's in here. She was a former Refine Labs peer of mine early days, but we worked with a ton of PE and VC-backed companies. And man, it's a different world. I'm sure a lot of you see and experience that. What happens when you get the pressure from the board of you have to hit this quarter's goal and it completely shifts your entire strategy or anything else that might come in there. So I've done publicly traded company. I had worked with a number of PVC backed companies, and I worked with a few that were bootstrapped and saw just the very different dynamics in long-term versus short-term games. What are the strategies associated with it? And I was like, I want to go bootstrap back because they're in it for the long haul. The leader is the ultimate owner. If it's the founder, it's their baby. They want to be in this for a while too. So they're not just trying to figure out, okay, if I have to cut expenses this quarter in order to hit the stakeholder requirements for the quarterly earnings report, but it's just like roll things over. You don't have to hit the exact budget, spend it, or the use it or lose it that a lot of us had before. So that was a big part for me was I wanted to go somewhere where I can implement strategy and do it knowing like especially the philosophy that I have a feeling a lot of you follow if you're subscribed to Eric's newsletter is like you want to be it for the long haul. It's the demand gen playbook, it's the build trust, build awareness, help your market actually solve a problem versus try to get as many MQLs as possible. And so this all aggregated into this perfect world where it's just like that's bootstrapped often operates that way.
Yeah, I love it. That's very important. Um, okay, so can we go a little bit deeper into like your so you came in with that goal of like implementing that strategy, and then you got to the strategy clarity, which is like I want to be the HubSpot for recruiters. How did you like start that? Like as a first marketing hire, like what were kind of the first couple things that you did?
Yeah. We had no distribution, we had no content engine. And coming from Refined Labs, it's like we're marketers talking to marketers. So we are the subject matter experts. I'm not a recruiter by trade. I had no authority on the topic. And I was just like, okay, well, I can't take that angle with the social content or be that person. Our CEO, love him to death. He is not a Chris Walker. He's much more introverted and product oriented. So when I talked to him, I'm like, hey, you want to be the face of the brand in terms of like podcasting? He's just like, pass, figure it out. That's not going to be me though.
You're like,
So
I need a tan guy who can talk to be a face of the brand.
right,
He's like, I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
tan enough, dude. I'm sorry. You need to
So
find
yeah,
someone else.
didn't have that luxury there, but what it came to though was okay, thinking back to when I first got started in marketing, why I loved HubSpot was I'd just go to the content section of their website. I had a physical binder that I would print off like content marketing 101, demand marketing 101, product marketing 101, all of that. I was like, there's no one doing that for recruiters. There's a lot of people pitching, hey, we're a better ATS. We're gonna help you find better candidates, but there's no one teaching you how, the philosophy behind it, why it's important, what's the actual strategy that you should use. Because a tool is not a strategy. I mean, you could insert, we're in one of the most saturated categories that there is. So I was like, okay, that's an opportunity for us to really be thought leaders in it. And so what we did was we're like, how do we enter that space, especially when I was marketing team of one at that point. So I was like, well, I want to do a podcast, not to grow to be a million subscribers, but use this long form conversations to get video, to get long form content that we can then turn into short form content, blog posts. We can have customers on, make that into customer stories, but use that as the one centralized place where, spend an hour of work, 2 hours of work, and then that becomes 2, 4 weeks worth of content from there. So then I was bridging the gap of, well, I'm not a subject matter expert or CEO is not going to do it. How do I orient around this? So I was like, okay, well, let's scratch my own itch. I don't know the answer. So instead of me leading the conversation in terms of, here's what you should do as a recruiter to increase the number of candidates that say yes to your outreaches, how to make more placements, I was just like, find the best, find the very best, the smartest, whether they're customers or prospects, and say, what do? You found success. Like, go through and talk to them because I want to learn. I was like, okay, the questions that I want to learn are the same things that I would be listening for in a podcast if I were in the shoes of a recruiter. So it worked out really well in that dynamic where I got to go into it with no ego, not trying to present Loxo as a solution because it wasn't, but just teach me, tell me your strategies, the tactics, the execution. And it became this win-win because we got the content, I got to shine a light on other people. And then I also pulled in our internal subject matter experts, our CSMs who were recruiters before, and helped them start to slowly build out their own social presence on the back end because they would get the content from it as well. So it was a very scrappy way to go to it. Honestly, it sounds a lot more polished than it was as I was going through it. I did not have this master plan of how this was all going to shake out over a quarter, 2 quarters, 4 quarters. A lot of it was just finding the signals of what's working, what's not, what am I onto something with? Let's push harder. What doesn't seem to be gaining traction, or what are the things that I despise about this? I do not like video editing. Can I go find someone that can help with this? So it was a lot of feeling it out as I go or as I went with the content side of things.
And so you go like podcast the main content brick, and then were you running ads from the beginning, or did you like want to get the content machine going first and then?
Yeah, we did the ads from the beginning just because again we knew what was
Oh, and
working
you're
so
already
well.
running ads for them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
from
that makes
Fine Lab,
sense.
so it was a combination of your traditional like brand problem focused ads, and then from that insight of when they see it, they get it. I was doing a lot of use case and jobs to be done videos that were just 30, 60, 90-second highlights of like the actual product. It was like literally like a Zoom recording from our training guy and showing like, hey, here's how you find a candidate. Put in the job description, go through this, and then you just see the output because so many recruiters are like, oh, it's such a pain in the butt to have to do all this. It's so hard. They don't know that it could be as easy as it was until they saw it. They didn't believe it. So that was where we were pulling out like, what are the biggest pains? Put that in front of them. And the call to action at the end of it wasn't get a demo with it, but it was just educating them like this is possible. You can physically see how easy it is. And so no hard CTA, anything at the end of it, but just continued showcasing of the various pains and jobs to be done that we knew they did throughout their day to day because we're an end-to-end platform, not just one single use case. That helped them to understand like we were a full-on end-to-end solution that would help them versus just, another tool to have to pay for.
I love it. Do you have any, I don't know, kind of thinking back to the last like 3 years, oftentimes people will have like some small tactical tweaks they made that were like very low effort but had a huge impact.
Yeah.
Did you have any of those? Like you're like this tiny change I made had like a huge impact on how well my marketing machine was working.
Yeah. I mean, the hands down the easiest one will always be the let people schedule a time on a demo request
Yeah.
form. I know that's pretty much best practice now, but that if you don't have that, that will immediately increase your conversion rate from demo to at least meeting attended 20%. Don't hold me to that number, but you will see a significant jump up on that. So number one, toss it in, well worth it. You mean Chili Piper, default, Calendly, Google has their own scheduling thing. Like there's no HubSpot has one. There's no reason not to have it at this point. So that's an obvious one. Um, Targeting, I think this is the most important one. Just not being, you can't be broad, but you also can't be so hyper specific that you miss out on people in the buying committees because as we all know, it's not one person that's going end to end, picking up, the doing the research, vetting the options, building the business case, working with the CFO. Like it's a whole handful of people. So really focusing on the overall targeting and getting all those people in the mix. That takes some research because it's not just like if you look at Salesforce or HubSpot, it's not just the one contact that's associated with the opportunity. So that's where if you have a call recording tool, I know like this isn't a plug for Gong, we use Gong, and in it you can see who are all the attendees that join the meetings over time. You can start to get a sense for okay, what are the roles, what are the questions that they're asking, and then who all do I want in this mix to have be in this audience pool. So that is a very important one that I would always recommend. On the very tactical side, bid management. So I mean, we're heavy in LinkedIn. This is one of the areas that I have a love-hate relationship with LinkedIn on because we have to use it because our audience is there. But if you use their automated bid strategies, um, they will take 2 to 5 times as much as it actually costs to reach those people that you want. So I will always say, do the manual bidding, calibrate it. You're not going to hit everyone in the beginning, but work your way up incrementally over time. There's going to be fluctuations. It is a pain in the butt, but that can save you. I've seen it save us 150% on total spend. That, I mean, that's reaching 2.5 times the number of people you would have reached otherwise. So bootstrap company, I had to, every penny had to be accounted for more or less. So how do we make it go as far as possible? But that's one that I would say, like, that's not a sexy thing by any means, but I've seen us miss months of, like, a single month we were missed our pipeline target, and then I found it was because our CPMs went through the roof. A new campaign was launched, it didn't have that configured, we went in to fix it, come straight back down, voila. Like, such strong correlations between them, where that is one that has become a core playbook item that I'll always say is like we're going to stick to. um Last one is, I'd say, on the email side, the sender matters so much more than anything else you realize. For open rates, subject lines, yeah, they're impactful. The domain matters, but I mean, we've done tests all the time where we send it from just marketing at Loxo, from our customer marketer at Loxo, from Sam at Loxo, from Matt at Loxo, Matt, our CEO. Matt went, we can have everything standardized across the board. Matt's open rates will always be, I don't have hard numbers here, but very well statistically significantly higher than anyone else, just because people see founder, CEO, and it's not even his actual email. One of our domains we branched off of it, but they see Matt's name and they think it's from him. So that's another one where that's a tactical tweak, that if email is big for you all, working with your founder, CEO, execs, but when the market knows their name, knows their face, versus like, oh, great, another sales rep or BDR in my inbox, that does make a difference depending on the type of content that you're delivering in that email. So I'm going to shut up for a minute. That was a lot of tactical stuff.
Dude, that was great. There was so
Yeah.
much gold in there. Yeah, the LinkedIn bidding one is just to clarify on that, you're starting as low, basically as low as possible, and then just like inching up.
Yeah, I mean,
Right.
being
Yeah.
reasonable with it, because they give you like the recommended ranges. So we'll usually start at the bottom. We'll see if
Of
at
the
the
recommended
bottom, are we
ranges.
still serving, or, if we say we want to spend $100 a day for only hitting 75, okay, let's ratchet it up. If we're spending all 100, hey, we can probably pull it back down a little bit and keep going that way. So that's where it's kind of one of those exercises where you have to lick your finger, put it in the air, and see which way the wind's blowing.
Yeah, but I found the same. Uh, I found the same thing when it was just like stealing money from me.
Yeah.
I want to keep that money. Okay. What about the podcast distribution? Like, hey, let's start a podcast. The content's good. No one's listening to it. Anything that you did to like get it distributed or like get the ball rolling on that? Or was it just like a long term, like as long as a couple
Yeah.
people listening is fine and I'll just like keep going?
It's a long term. We still don't have it. Like, if you go and look at our YouTube page, our downloads, I mean, we're less than 500 downloads on each episode, probably less than 300. And I'm completely okay with that, because that's not the game. I'm in it for the content game versus that being the primary driver. We just passed episode 250. We've been doing this for 2.5 years now. This year, I think we're going to start to try to do a little bit more with the podcast. But until this point, it's been the ability to distribute the podcast is a benefit of having that conversation, of gathering what we needed to create the content. So the podcast distribution and production wasn't the goal. The conversation and everything that stemmed from it was the goal. So that's how I've been viewing it. It's just like, hey, this episode pops off, great. Like, that's an indicator. Create more content around this, or the speaker or the industry. Like, dig into that for content insights. But um, our CEO's never once asked, like, hey, how many downloads do you get this month? Like, what's it doing for pipeline? Like, he knows that it's part of the larger content strategy.
It's just so crazy that you're like able to do so much with such a simple strategy, right? Like there's nothing groundbreaking
Yeah.
here. It's just like that fundamentals executed super well, and then you just focus on them and did it for a
I
long
mean,
time.
that's why you see this all the time in startups and scale ups, where you'll have a marketing team of five. Like, I mean, Austin, you guys at Sendosa ran circles around the larger people in the space for the longest time, because you have to be creative, you have to be scrappy, versus, you could have a team of 50 that's held up by red tape, not able to do anything fun. Like, it's not hard to beat them. And honestly, that's kind of why I like this forced constraint, because you do have to think outside the box and not just go and see, type into Google, what's the best practice for this? Or like, hey, we did email marketing, but it's just like, well, when you don't have a choice but to get opens or figure it out, otherwise your budget goes away, or your neck's on the line because there's only three of you responsible for pipeline, you have to figure that out.
I love it. All right, cool. Well, we're about to open up for questions. Before that, Sam's a baller. The type of person we wouldn't be able to get access to normally. And you guys all get access to him for free. And the reason why is because we have some amazing sponsors that are helping letting me spend all my time harassing people like Sam to get on the webinar or to calls like this and do newsletters. So I'm gonna do a quick poll. If you're interested in any of the sponsors, I'll make an intro. They all have special. Uh, they're gonna hook you up if you come from Demand Collective. But we got Seam AI. They're basically new 6sense, super AI enabled, way cheaper than 6sense, way better. Vector. They do like contact level ads, and then they let you see who's clicking your ads at the contact level, which there's lots of ways you can use that in an interesting way. And then they have bid agents. So the stuff that Sam was talking about, they do automate a lot of that, which is really cool. CaliberMind is sick attribution platform for like enterprise or companies with complexity. And then Scrunch is an AEO, really interesting AEO visibility tool. So click these. I'll intro you. I'll be able to get better guests for you on future sessions. So thank you.
Have we aligned on a term for AEO, GEO, LLM? What is that? Has anyone figured that out yet?
Not I. I'm calling it AEO, but I don't even know what AEO stands for, honestly. Do you know? Is it answer engine optimization? I don't know.
I'm with you. Oh no,
You're the expert, Sam. You're on the hot seat.
not in that space. I just call it dark search and call it good enough.
Yeah, that's good. Um, all right, cool. Well, all right, let's get into questions. So go ahead and put your questions in the chat. I'll bring you guys on stage to ask Sam. I feel like Austin's been like heavy in the chat. We've been talking to him. I'm gonna assume you have a question, Austin. So I'm gonna call on you, but if not, we can wait for other
Sure,
questions to trickle in.
I can always have a question for Sam. I mean, I think one of the big things that I always see is your LinkedIn strategy, and I think it's awesome. And so what do you, I guess, what made you invest in that direction more? Because not all HR people are on LinkedIn. Is that like a good subset of your scene? You're seeing like traction there? Like, uh, we sell to marketers, most marketers, B2B SaaS are there. So it's like a great place for us. But like, I used to sell to HR. So I'm always intrigued to like, what made you go in that direction more?
Yeah. Anecdotal and qualitative or quantitative. So, the recruiters that we sell to are agency recruiters, external. So they're the headhunters that have to proactively go and find people. LinkedIn recruiter is the name of the game. If you like every big professional recruiter, they just because they have the biggest pool of people, it's the most up-to-date information because it's all first-party data. So you're correct that not all of them are on there, but any firm that's not just getting started can afford the contract. That's one of the first investments that they make. So we know that they're on there. So Pareto principle, majority of them were spending time there. And so from there, it was just validate it, put ads out in front, what's happening with it. In the back of my mind, I had the data set from Refined Labs days, what's good look like in terms of engagement across just platform metrics, click-through rates, clicks, dwell time to drawing the correlations over to hand raisers, pipeline, all of that, nearly 1.0 correlation. So that validated that one. And then we did different polls. I mean, there's tools out there like SparkToro that can tell you where your audience does spend their time. So some of it was there's Facebook communities that recruiters live and breathe on, which is kind of funny. So we did minor Facebook ads for a while. As targeting got worse, that became harder because it's like, look like audiences. You don't know if you're matching to them based on the fact that they're both recruiters or that they both like cats. Like it does not tell you on any of that. So we did some there just to make sure we were showing up primarily retargeting for a while, just because that did go away. We explored different tools, metadata, those ones to create the audience lists on that size or on that side. But overall, we pulled away from a while until more recently, the past couple months with the Andromeda update. That's made a huge difference. Go look into that. That's something that we're actively experimenting with, and I'm very happy with the initial outcomes. The long story short is their algorithm has gotten so strong that it can start to detect those different groups and figure out like, oh, you're a recruiter based on the videos that you're watching or anything else, and it starts to serve up like you can target the entire US population, and within 2 days it will really only serve to recruiters or to anything else. So the creative then becomes your targeting, which is very different from what I said 10 minutes ago about targeting being the most important thing on LinkedIn. So that's why I say like learn, adapt, never be so dogmatic about your playbook that you say like if you asked me 2 years ago, would I ever target Facebook as US only as the targeting, I would have laughed in your face and walked out of the room. Now I'm just like, yeah, we're experimenting with that.
That's super interesting. I'm gonna jump on Christina's because she can't jump on stage, you said, but I'm also interested. You mentioned that you helped your CSMs, former recruiters, build their brands. Do you mind sharing more? Like, how did you do that? How do you enable them?
Yeah. Part of it was who wanted to. I put feelers out there. 8 out of 10 of them were just crickets, didn't hear anything. I've got enough to do during my day. I don't want to deal with that, blah, blah, blah. Then there are some who are more outspoken or ambitious or want to do that. So I started pulling some in just for our podcast episodes where we did these mini, we call them Tactical Tuesdays, where it's just quick tip, 10, 15-minute episode, something that you can listen to, take away from. And I had a recurring guest, Vivian, on our team, who's one of our now, she went from CSM to strategic CSM to now leading our team of account management in 2.5 year time period frame. So it lined up there where she was interested. She had the expertise. She wanted to grow both in terms of her skill set and the social side. So it kind of you have to find like those people where it all does line up on that side. But yeah, from there it was just a lot of the stuff like, the first times we get on podcasts, we're nervous. We don't want to create like what's everyone think if this post flops or anything else. And it's just talking to you like, hey, here's what to expect. You're gonna get one like on this, and it's gonna be from me for a while. Just keep posting, keep showing up, have the podcast, because what eventually happens, and I had the same conversation with our CEO, because he wasn't very talkative for a while, was I had podcast episodes where I'd interview him, and he was still doing founder-led sales. And I was like, come back in 6 months, you're gonna find out that you're gonna get on calls with prospects who are going to say, I feel like I know you. You don't have to pitch me, just get me the contract or start talking pricing with me. He's just like, yeah, wouldn't that be nice? 6 months later, he's like, holy shit, like this actually worked. I don't have to pitch them anymore. Like they know the podcast has become the pitch deck for us in that realm because they know the problem. They know the outcome and everything else. You don't have to walk them through like the first half of like, what's the problem? What's the solution? They're already bought in at that point. They recognize it, and that's why they're coming here. So it depends on the role of the person. If they're more sales oriented, if they're more CS oriented. So with especially going back to Vivian and CS, I was just like, what's the 5 conversations that you're having with your 50 accounts every week in a one-to-one basis that you are so tired of saying that it's the same answer every time? Like, let's go make content about it, and you can just send them this video, send them this blog post, create this guide. And so answering it from that lens also helps them scratch their own itch a little bit too, because now all of a sudden they don't have to be repeating themselves over and over. Like they start to get this repository of stuff that helps them, and it's in their specific voice.
That's great. Yeah, I love the you just gotta find those like one or two people who fit.
Yeah.
You can be the horse.
Do not expect it from the whole team. No,
Yeah.
make it voluntary. Yeah.
And then the podcast is a really easy kind of way to get that. Like you're not like you need to write like the post from scratch. Like if they're more comfortable just talking to you,
Yep.
they can. Okay, we had a question from yeah, Courtney was asking like what were some of the more creative initiatives you ran? Do you have like one campaign or like initiative or content thing? Anything that was like you were like, oh wow, I did a really good job there. That was creative, worked super well. That you think would be valuable to share?
Yeah. We've done a couple different things that have been a lot of fun. An interesting connection that I've seen is the more creative and less polished it's been have done better than the more creative and more polished that it's been. So what I mean by that is early on we did so as you mentioned earlier, like we did this kind of like old way, new way messaging when I first got started. And so early on we did a campaign that was basically like stop recruiting like it's the 1980s. And so we did a like now that's what I call music 1980s version where we took songs from the 1980s, tweaked the song name so it'd be related to Loxo. So like the song Roxanne, we called Loxanne. We created an album, we did the whole artwork thing, created landing pages for it, created really, really, really stupid infomercial styles from like the 80s, 90s time frame. That's one of our best campaigns in the three years that we've been here. Was not polished. Like we've done the other side of it where we've done the proper CTV commercials where it's, go spend $50,000, work with an agency, get some very polished, nice high-end commercials that you can run on TV. And don't get me wrong, those did incredibly well also. But if you look at the investment of both of them and then the output, they're both very creative, but it's not a you have to spend more to get these highly positive creative results. Like that's where again it comes from play within your constraints. And so our copywriter had a brand and content. She was also big into what you call it play like she was always in plays in high school and everything, so she's like, oh, I love being in front of a camera, like tell me what you want me to do, give me a script and I'll go shoot this thing. Like she had no shame in any of it, and she had a lot of fun along the way. So it's combining all of that. But I'd say those were probably some of the more creative ones. As of late, we've tried like we've done a breakup with your current ATS and we'll send you a pint of ice cream. So like highly creative. I've seen a lot of feedback come back from companies like, oh, that ad caught my attention, but only like 3 people have actually converted on the forum saying like send me the ice cream. So it's interesting in that it works, but people aren't actually thinking like, okay, you don't need to send me a pint of ice cream for it. But um yeah, that's the balance of how do we stay consistent to our brand, to our tone. So when someone sees an ad, they're like, oh, that's Loxo, to also this fighting for attention in the feed. Like we all know what we need to do to capture the attention and standing out. So that's the balance of like, okay, do we need to do like 80% consistency, 20% just go all out, have fun, be unique? And I don't have a good answer for it because that's one where our head of content and our head of brand will look at me and they're just like, we need to wrangle this in, Sam. You're getting a little too much outside the lines again. So
Wait, so can we double click on this is the one, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so stop recruiting like it's 1980s. Great, like simple copy that's not pretty but great. It seems like it's converted super well. Start for free, it's easy to talk to sales. Okay, that's cool. And then you had this like quiz,
I
a
made a little quiz on
BuzzFeed
BuzzFeed
quiz, and then you made a playlist playlist for them too.
playlist.
Um, this is great. So how did this campaign? I just want to like get in the details on this, but like how did this campaign work? Did you just uh you build a bunch of ads around Stop Recruiting like it's 1980s, did a bunch of social
Yeah,
stuff around it and drove to this landing page?
that's really what it was. Yeah, just different fun ads that were unique. We did so that's our head of content, Lex. She's absolutely hilarious.
Oh, that's her. Oh, that's funny.
That's her. Yeah, that's her. She went to her grandparents' house and found that phone in the attic just so she could should film this commercial for it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. Like we were just like, hey, let's go all in. If we made an entire ad campaign for this, what would we want to do? So you need the ads, we need the landing page, and then to make round it out as a proper campaign, it's like, okay, let's do like a fun quiz thing, top of funnel. The relatability of a lot of recruiters, like they grew up or went through this era of the whole now that's what I call music CD. So there'll be some recognition in nostalgia that always plays well. We printed and made like concert tour shirts where I think it was further on that page it said like, if you complete this and send this over our way, we'll send you an actual shirt to go with it. So, or maybe it wasn't in there, maybe it was at the end of the quiz. I forget where, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Boolean
yeah.
Gene. That
That's
was one
great.
of the fun discount codes we made up. No one went through with that, but
Yeah.
we were just early days. We wanted to stand out. We wanted to be creative. We wanted to have fun with it. And it was one of our top performers of all time.
How did you come up with this?
Our head of brand, head of creative, and we just sat down. We're like, because this was again going back to like, we're bootstrapped, we're long term, we want to be memorable, we need to stand out, we want to educate around this problem. Like, okay, so it's old way, new way. So let's go back. Like, why are you recruiting like it's still the 1980s? And then I think just an hour of dumb brainstorming, no idea is a bad idea, led to a brain dump, which led to this being one of the front runners. And we just kept pulling the thread. And the more we pulled it, the more we were laughing and like came up with these ideas. And so when we aren't constrained to each campaign has to have a ROAS of 5.0 or have to hit this certain revenue target by this timeline, we could afford to make these types of bets. And this one paid off. I mean, we've made bets that certainly haven't, but this was one of the creative ones that did.
And so you guys have like you run a campaign a quarter type of thing, and you'll just like get in a room and be like,
Yeah,
what do you want to do? What are some ideas?
in the beginning, we shipped once a month, a new campaign every month. We had to try to see like, so
Yeah.
with the platform that we were running, we were consolidating 10 different tools, which are all their own different use cases. So in recruiting, you have to source a candidate, you have to get
Right.
their contact information, you have to email them, you have to put them in your ATS, you have to work with your client. So all these are different things. So in the beginning, we're just like, what lands well? What's the biggest pain? What are the things that people are reaching on? So for the first year, we kind of tested out each of those different use cases and pains to see how do people engage with them, what lands better. And then as we started to hone in on core use cases, not just like what gets people in the door, but also lifetime value, long-term customers who actually uses the platform properly. While sourcing is a big pain, if people come to us just for sourcing, we find out that, they're not using the full platform. They're not as we don't retain them at the high of a rate as the people are just like, I'm so sick of managing 10 different tools at once. So that's where we figure out and hone in on, okay, like what's the messaging? What's the angle that we want to do based off of this? Is it pain specific, job to be done specific? Is it broader workflow, consolidation, efficiency, that lens? And the personas that we hit too. So going back to the beginning of the audience targeting, is it the agency founders that we want to speak who are looking at revenue, bottom line figures? Is it the day-to-day recruiter that just doesn't want to jump between 20 tabs at once? So that's where we were shipping fast early on to get as much data as we could as possible. And then we went to every 6 weeks. And now this year, we're probably shifting to about every 6 to 8 weeks because the emphasis is really going to be on like quality, doing things 10 out of 10. So like we look at that. That's what I call music 1980s campaign. That landing page, I loved it. It worked at the time. That would not fly for us today just because we look at that and say like this could be better. It should be better. And so that's where we're now starting to balance. Like we have the data to understand what's working. The differentiator now becomes doing things at a 10 out of 10 to stand out versus like anyone can ship anything now between Claude, GPTs, all that stuff. It's not hard to produce, but where you stand out will be the quality of the content and not being the fluffy, just meh kind of stuff that everyone can read between the lines on.
Yeah, totally. Um, I like that a lot. I like that a lot of the like using campaigns, especially as you're early on a startup marketing team to test a lot of these things and also to like ship stuff at the same time. Uh, okay. Let's see.
I have a question, Eric.
Yeah, please.
Hey, Sam, good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
I'm curious how you think, and I missed the first 5 minutes, sorry if this isn't covered, but how you're thinking about measuring your spend on LinkedIn. I know you chat a lot on LinkedIn yourself about hockey stack and just kind of curious about your approach there.
Yeah, $1 million question. Just had to go there. Ultimately, the number I look at is quarterly our CAC payback period. And so I look at that through three lenses. I look at it from our variable spend. So just how much are we putting into the market this month, this quarter. I look at it from our total marketing spend, so variable plus all of the overhead, employee salaries, everything else. And then I look at the total go-to-market inputs of it as well. So sales salaries, all that stuff to drive revenue. And it's never perfect because that's then a mix of lagging indicators and we still have yet to perfect cohort reporting, which is going to sound something so basic, but like we still operate on in-time reporting for something. So I'll look at how much was spent in a quarter and what's the output in that quarter and know that the output is very rarely, we have fast sales cycles, 30, 45 days, but a lot of the spend that occurred 1, 2, 3 quarters back are what impacted the sale that actually comes through in that time. So I use the CAC payback period just to understand like if we inject a ton of money, are we all of a sudden upside down? Are we still staying efficient at those different rates? Because we'll usually start to see you'll know your baseline if you look at a handful of quarters back, what that is. But then the other sides of it are I still use how do you hear about us pretty heavily. Just, if we double spend in LinkedIn, go and look at how do you hear about us, responses in a bar chart. It's never going to be a perfectly linear correlation, but is it going up when it should be going up? Is it not? So back to the example I shared earlier about LinkedIn CPM. So we doubled our LinkedIn budget 1 month and our conversions from that channel, the how do you hear about us was flat. And I was like, historically, every time we increased, it went up. So I was like, something's off there. What's going on? We went and looked, and our CPMs also doubled in that same time frame. So no wonder we were serving the same amount of impressions, just being charged twice as much for it. So that's one way that I'll usually use it. It's not gonna like you won't find that in HubSpot attribution, last touch, anything there where it's just kind of connecting the dots with the data. But yeah, Hockey Stack is one that I'm looking much, much, much more into. So we started implementation of it last year, got the basics in place for just core dashboards, and then they just wrote out, and this is not me promoting Hockey Stack, but they just wrote out Blueprints, which is the same concept of the GTM ecosystem I've been trying to figure out for the past 1, 2 years, which is just like it's not assigning credit to a specific touch point and saying like that influenced the deal, but what is the cadence of touch points? Does serving ads up before BDR calls them increase the likelihood of the BDR call being successful? Because if the BDR call is successful, they'll let them to get on a call with a sales rep. Higher likelihood of a qualified opportunity. If they don't see an ad in a BDR calls, it's a very different conversation for the BDR because they have to explain who Loxo is, what we solve for, they aren't primed for that. So that's one they rolled it out like 2 weeks ago. I'm still waiting for them to enable it for us, but I'm hopeful that that'll help. But again, we both know that tools are never the silver bullet. It's not going to paint the perfect picture for us, but I do think it'll be interesting to get away from this binary, does it influence, does it not influence, to looking at kind of this like series of events, who are the people getting involved. It'll just give us some more data to make informed decisions around like where do we spend money, who are we putting it in front of, what's the channel mix at the ideal time, should we invite them to an event before they talk to a BDR, should we, like how does that all come into play? That was kind of a vague answer, but hopefully it was a little specific enough to help. Like, did it hit on enough of what you were looking for there?
Yeah, it was helpful. I mean, it's just always good to hear how people are thinking about spend and how they're measuring it.
If
And it
someone ever
sounds
tells you,
like,
go
oh, go
ahead.
ahead. It sounds like you're not doing a whole lot of isolating specifically to a channel. It's just more looking at it overall and making sure you're spending efficiently.
For us, yeah, we just have way too many variables at play at once to do a proper like isolate a variable, look at incrementality of it. Like if I try to do it, it would be false positives, false negatives, just because we're constantly changing channels, spends, targeting. Um, if we were more mature as a company in terms of just like been around for a long time, a lot more revenue, where it is just like, okay, let's go isolate. Making this up, Australia is a country. Like we could very easily run a test to understand the lift in that. But right now, just where we're at with scale up speed, want to move fast. How do we capitalize on as much as possible? That wouldn't quite help get me what I'm looking for. That's the fun that we get to
Yeah,
have though, right?
So,
that's
so sorry, Charlotte, do you have more there? Okay. So, Sam, like you raised a bunch of money then, and then had probably like they give you much more marketing budget, and are like you need to go put this to work, and then you need to give us a forecast of like what's going to happen, right?
Hmm.
Were you able
Yeah.
to like answer that
Yeah. So I
question?
still did the forecast because we knew that our efficiencies were going to decrease a little bit. So again, making this number up. So you go from a 1 month payback period to a 2 month payback period. That's naturally going to happen just as you add more overhead. So our marketing team went from 4 people to 11 in the past year just because of the things that we knew we wanted to do. So there was that side of it where as I was building out models, it's like, okay, we're going to increase variable, we're going to increase overhead. And then with the rest of the modeling, it was just kind of looking at historicals to say, where are we making our bets? So I know in the news they were talking about we really hadn't done much with SEO or email or webinars. We've been relying quite heavily on the word of mouth and the ad side of things. So the bet was, we can keep throwing money at this thing, and we know it's going to get more expensive the more money you throw in. Cost per demo might go from $5,000 to $8,000 if you keep finding that because you're going to find the point of diminishing returns. But if we start to layer SEO into the mix, that's an overhead cost that stays the same and it's a long tail effect. So if we're 12 months in and we've been doing SEO properly, that should actually drive down the cost per demo because we're pulling people in from this channel that we don't have to inject spend into. And so that's where I then balance out, okay, we need to grow fast because we did get this investment. So I'm going to pour gas in early with a variable, but I'm also going to have these long-term plays coming in, webinar, SEO, email, which should start panning out 2, 3, 4 quarters later. And then that was the big guess where we had to figure out and come back and adjust where that's the one nice thing about us still the way that we work with our PE is that we are not locked in like, oh, you said you were going to do this in Q3. It's like, well, we have an annual target, so we're just going to pick up more in Q4 and we're going to push harder there. We're going to reforecast because why would we stay on a path that we know is kind of in the direction we want to go, but not quite it. Like let's go on the path that's going to get us on that track. So um yeah, that's the fun part and probably the most stressful part that I get to go through is those quarterly just how are we doing according to goal? Are we on? Are we off? What do we need to do? Because you don't want to knee-jerk react. That's always the biggest thing is like you have to give some things time to marinate, to start to play out. And if you shift audiences, if you completely stop channels or anything else, like there's the long tail second order effects that most of us don't account for that could hurt you.
Sweet. That makes sense. Yeah, that's helpful. I think I mean, that's a whole nother Q&A also of the how to do forecasting well and like where to spend your next marketing dollar, etc. Other questions?
Yeah, I actually had one. Hi, Sam.
Hey, Charlotte, another Charlotte I know.
Surprise. Yes, that big company that Sam mentioned we used to work together at lifetime ago, it feels
Oh,
like.
cool.
But I love hearing about how much you lean into testing. And I have found it can be a little hard when you are working, especially in like a startup environment, to like convince your leadership that testing is a worthwhile process. I was just kind of curious, but like on your experience, do you feel like that's kind of like an innate quality you look for in a leader that you work with, or are there things you can do over time to like build up that trust little by little?
Yeah, combination of both. So that was one thing when I was looking at Loxo, our CEO, and so we help recruiters. He first principles, he's just like find people who are very good at what they do and let them do their thing. So he's just like, I'm not a good sales rep, I'm not a good coder, I'm not a good marketer. Like he's like, but I'm gonna go find people who know what to do and enable them. Obviously, I'm gonna give them the guardrails for everything else, but he he gives a lot of rope to the different leaders and he's just like you are the leader of your own business unit, you're responsible for results, so it's not just me stepping back and saying like, oh, it's okay if you don't. And he's just like, I'm going to hold you to goals, but I'm not going to tell you how to do it because if I did I wouldn't need to hire you in the first place. So that not everyone has that. That's the one side. But as for training your leaders on the experiments, so there's some different ways that I've gone about this. It's like, what's an area that you either went through recently or would love to try to get them on board with letting you experiment with?
Um, So many. But I feel like digital ads is something that has been like questioned pretty
Okay.
heavily because
Yeah.
it was a brand new initiative. And obviously it does tend to draw more of like a down market kind of audience.
Yeah.
But like that is part of our funnel. So even though it's not like the big payoff we want to see, it's still bringing in the quantity.
Yeah. So there's two things I do there. So one is, remember our ADR days? There was a big difference when you and I would call prospects. Hey, it's Sam from Blackbot. How are you? Like, what's Blackbot? I've never heard of that. Digital ads prime that audience better than anything else that you can do. So that's one where I always say, like, I just go back to that exact experience. I'm just like, I remember my days cold calling and the difference of do they have at least brand familiarity with us and or problem solution familiarity? Because that makes my conversation much easier. So walk them through that experience. If you can even get anecdotal evidence from your own BDRs, that's going to help too, where if they can point to instances like that. Eric, you even had an example in the newsletter we did where I screenshotted one of our BDRs who had that exact quote they shared in Slack with us. I'll let him pull that up. But then the other side of it is with the leaders, I'll usually just say like, tell me, yeah, so here's the quote. They're just like, honestly, it was the easiest call of my life. I said who we were, and they immediately reply with, we're looking for one, and we know you. Like, are you free at this time? Like that's what marketing done well and ahead of time for someone cold calling, that's a difference it makes. So that definitely helps. And then with the leaders, what I'll usually do is just, and depending on your startup, hopefully they should still be getting these, but like tell me about the last purchase that you helped make here for whether it was software services. Like, how did you come across them? How did you know you had a pain? How did you come up with this mental shortlist or like deciding who to go after? And usually it's like, oh, my buddy told me about them. Okay, that's word of mouth. That's not helpful. Or I heard a CEO on a podcast. Okay, well, was that promoted via feed? Was there paid ad dollars behind it? I saw a LinkedIn post by XYZ person, Facebook ad, but usually before you prime them for saying, like, here's what I want to do, digital marketing or social ads, just ask them that broad question and have them, like, say, take your time, really think through everything that you went through along the way or the people that were researching and how they came to find out about them. Because that's not going to show up in the core attribution of the last touch. It's not going to be last touch thing unless it's Google Ads. Do you guys do How'd You Hear About Us?
No, I wrote that down today though.
Do that. Hands down, do that. It is so worth it because that's where so like last touch is going to be what was the last thing before they came in. First
Hmm.
touch, same kind of thing. But how'd you hear about us is usually like, what's the most memorable thing? Or when you look back, it's like, where did you just keep hearing about us over and over and over? And usually that is going to show up for these untrackable channels where if you guys have the podcast, if you have the founder that posts on LinkedIn, if you have a YouTube channel that you have a bunch of educational, instructional videos on that'll show up. But kind of aligning between those, that should help give you another data set to help with it.
Yeah. Do you include that? How did you hear about us on every form?
So we don't do lead magnets, like we don't do the traditional MQL thing where it's lead gen and then send it to a BDR. So we're dual motion sales led and product led. So I only do it on my high intent forms, demo request, and when you sign
Hmm.
up for the product
Okay.
led experience, I just put it on those.
Okay. Sweet. Thank
I have
you.
another. We did a newsletter a while ago on attribution with Eric McCall, he was head of enterprise dimension at Atlassian, and he showed this graph, which I think is an interesting way to do experiments, just like a holdout test. So you
Hmm.
just split your audience and then run ads at one of them, and then be like, what's our conversion rate on cold calls from the
Yeah.
audience that saw ads versus not. This is for ABM, but you could do it for digital ads too. It's like a super simple way to prove it out. Um, all right, cool. We're at time. Thanks everyone so much. Can we please get some feedback? Give us a rating, 1 to 10 in the chat. And then any notes, any feedback on what you liked or didn't like about the session.
Yeah, let me know. And Christina, I see your question. Send me a DM. I'll respond back with that for the team roles you're asking about.
We got 100 out of 10. Let's
We'll
go.
take it.
And then
Gold
a
star
bunch
for
of
my
tens.
fridge. All right. Well, thank
Amazing,
you all. This was
Sam.
fun. I appreciate you
Thanks
guys
so
having
much.
me.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is amazing. Thanks for sharing the wisdom. This was super tactical, super useful, and I think it's been really helpful for everyone.
Good, good. All right.
Let's go. Lots of tens. Not a single 9, 7, 8 or below yet. Sweet. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone so much. Have a great rest of your day, and
Bye,
I'll
all.
see you all soon. Bye.